because of toxins and junk put in the human body. Many of us are born with physical defects, such I was born being hard of hearing. And my mom and dad didn't know this. When I be talking when I'm a little boy, I'm a boy. I'm a little boy now. My daddy often had to repeat things to me. I'll say something not quite right. I'll say Mick. He'll say, you ain't saying it right. And I'll go, Mick. And Mom would say it's milk. Now, if they had said Malacca, I would have got that better. Those nuances are hard to get hold of when you're hard of hearing. Milk. And Mom couldn't understand that. And so when I was around, I don't know how old I was, a few years old, and I found out why my daddy often said to me when he would teach me how to say words, you ain't saying it right. And so they did a hearing test, and your son is hard of hearing. And Mom said, well, that's what his problem is. So Mom got me a hearing device. I'm wearing one now. Let's see if you can see it. I don't know if this camera is going to pick it up or not. See, there's an amplifier, and there's a battery pack. 24 volts of battery, and here's a dynamic microphone. I hope y'all can see that. Hello, one on the right, and there's one on the left. See? Well, Mom got me a hearing device. It was a lot smaller than this one, a little bitty box. And it had a battery in it, and it had one cord, and it had an earbud. Actually, they made an ear mold, and they stuck it in my ear. And Mom said she remembers that day like it was yesterday. She said, Rodney went outside and heard the birds. I never heard a bird before because my hearing loss is on the high frequency. And so after I got my hearing back, I had to retrain myself to say many of the words. I still could not quite get them all right because even with the hearing device, you're still missing out on some of those high frequencies. I was born a singer with hard of hearing because I love to sing, and I'm not a professional singer because I am hard of hearing, and it's just about almost impossible for a person to become a professional singer and being hard of hearing because I love to sing. My daddy loved to sing, and my mom loved to sing, and I wanted to be like Mom and Dad. And so my daddy's saying to me, you ain't saying it right. It got less and less him saying that. Remember the first day in school? I was in school. I don't know if it was the first day or not. It doesn't matter. First day, the last day. It's all the same to me. It's all boring. Most of it. Anyway, I was in the classroom and I was saying something like using the word, there was a test. And I don't know if it was me or somebody else. And I say, well, that ain't right. And the teacher said, Rodney, don't use that word ain't. That's not a word. And I'm like, that don't make any sense to me. My mom says ain't. My daddy said ain't. They're both Irish. My grandmama is Irish. And she said ain't. A lot of expression. If you stop somebody from doing something, you go, don't do that. That's not the right way. Or if you training a little doggy not to pee on your floor, you go, and you stop them, take them outside and train them. We go, don't do that. Dog know what it means, A dog don't say, you ain't saying it right, they're going, And so in this day and time, in the day of people sounding like artificial intelligent robots, people have lost their identities. I call it sometimes artificial identity. So after the teacher told me ain't not a word, I went home and told Mom. I said, Mom, teacher told me ain't not a word. Let me see if I can say it like I said it when I was a little boy. I've lost a lot of my Irish accent because I've been around too many robots. Mom, the teacher said ain't not a word. And my mom said, honey, ain't is a word. We use it. It's a word. And then when my daddy got home from work, and he's a rocket man, he worked he worked for NASA, and he was a technical illustrator. And so I said, Daddy, teacher told me there ain't not a word. And my daddy looked at me, and he's a comedian. He always loved to make people laugh. He said, Rodney, you go tell that teacher that I told you to tell that teacher. Teacher, you ain't saying it right. So the next day in school, I was eager to go tell the teacher. And so that moment came, and I said, Teacher, my daddy told me to tell you, you ain't saying it right. And the teacher went, I'll never forget that. Now, I got a habit of repeating things when I was a little boy, because my daddy often had to repeat things to me, and my mom often had to repeat things, and I repeat things to get it right, and I try to get it in my head. And I have a granddaughter. She pretty much the same way. Now, she's perfect hearing and everything, but she loves to repeat things because you say something to get a laugh, she'll say it again to get a laugh, or if something's really important, she'll say it 2 or 3 times in a row to make sure everybody got it. Because sometimes the first time might go over the head. The second time it might go in the head a little bit, and then the third time somebody might say, "Oh, I get it." And so, as a geometry teacher, you have to repeat things a lot of times. To some people, usually the third time is the charm. First time they go, second time they go, third time you say it and they'll go, "Oh, I get it now." In this age of video and iPhone and all this stuff where people can go back and replay something, some people pride themselves on not repeating nothing ever. And I don't like that, because then I have to go back and replay the video. And I'd rather just a key point, I'd rather it just be repeated. That way you can know the key point of what's being said. Kind of like thinking out loud. Now, me, I got bad eyes too. I'll talk about that another time. But anyway, was the teacher wrong? Yeah, she was wrong. Because ain't is a word. And there are many expressions that I used to use when I was a little boy that are forbidden in today's society, because today's society, the so-called Western academia, Western education system, whether it be the elementary school, a middle school, a high school, a college, university, whatever you want to call it, everybody's starting to sound the same. And if everything is the same, that's the definition of insane. And so, let me think for a minute. So there's a lot of expression that I used to use when I was a little boy, and I want to go back to using them because I think they're funny. I used to say funny things to my mom would say, "Honey, that's funny." Like, here's one. I was living in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I believe the year was around 19... I don't know. I can't remember exactly what year. I remember that I was living there when the Billy Jack movie came out. So if you want to know exactly when I was living in Winston-Salem, go look up the debut of the Billy Jack movie. Anyway, maybe I was around 14 years old. We lived 1 mile from downtown Winston-Salem. We lived on a street called Green Street. And I used to just, in the summertime, I used to just walk downtown just about every day. And I used to jog and have fun. And one time there was a golf course about 7 miles away, and I went all the way to that golf course, 7 miles there, and looked at it. And I wanted to play golf, but I didn't have any money, so I came back home. But anyway, I'll look at these signs, and there was a sign, and it said something like Womack. I guess it was some kind of a factory or business that made parts or something. I have to go look it up and see what they made anyway. But it was Womack. And so I just look at it and go, Womack. It just give me a thought. Womacky, 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 Womacky. So I came home and I looked at my mom and said, "Hey, Womacky." Womacky. Mom said, "Honey, you so funny." But I remember when I was a foreman in a woodwork shop in Wilmington, North Carolina, there was this, we hired a college person, and he was running a router backward. The router, when you're holding it like this and the bit pointing down, it's turning clockwise. So if you're routing a laminate on a round table or a rectangular door, whatever, you run the router counterclockwise because you want the cut to go into the part that you're cutting. Well, he was going clockwise and the router was chattering. You don't want that. It can damage the router a bit. It can damage the laminate woodwork and so forth. So he was running it backwards and I went, "Ant." That was my way of saying stop. I'm going to correct you. Well, he got offended because I said ant. And if you say ain't, ant, and all these nasal expressions, which are Irish expressions, people look down on you because you don't talk like a robot like they do. So anyway, I think I would like to end this by saying who won that battle in the classroom. My daddy did. My mom did. I did. And the classroom was kind of like, you should see all the students' eyes. Wow, Rodney spoke against the teacher. You bet I did. There ain't no teacher on this planet going to tell me that ain't not a word. Because I'll say, you ain't saying it right. And so, and with that said, when I was in Winston-Salem, there was a vocational rehabilitation center there. And for 2 weeks, the pretty girl would come and pick me up and take me for a ride in the car to the vocational rehabilitation center. And there, the teacher taught me how to say some sounds that I could not make because I could not hear the high frequency. And sounds like the animal that jumped around the tree, I would say swirl. So she would take my mouth. She would say, Rodney, the correct way is, and she opened her mouth and she'd go, can you say, I said, well, yeah, I can say. Now she said, add that to swirl. So I go, squirrel. She said, there, you got it. For 2 weeks went by, and I was completely trained on how to pronounce all these particular sounds that I had a hard time duplicating simply because I was hard of hearing. I could get the ant right and the ain't and the on, the nuances, but when it comes to the meticulous of the sound and the sound, like before, when I was a little boy, my name, I would say, people say, what's your name? I say, Rodney. Rodney. I didn't say Rodney. I said Rodney. Now, my mom and dad would say my name like Rodney, or my mom would say it really much like Rodney. My daddy might say more like Rodney, but my mom would be more like Rodney. And my granny would go, Rodney, yeah, Rodney. And so I would say Rodney. I would just put that wah there. But the wah is there. I just didn't put the teeth on the lip and say the raw with it. Rodney. Because if you take away raw, you got Rodney. But if you add the teeth and grip the raw to it, Rodney. But your lip is still doing that wah. It just kind of hidden more because the raw kind of hides it more. So you can go wah, then wah, ra. So there you go. So I'm glad to have a daddy and a mom that enjoyed the nuances and the funniness and the jolliness of the Irish accent. And now I got to work hard to get it back. I got to go back to talking like I did when I was a little boy when it comes to the accent. I love that Irish accent. All my aunt and uncle had it. Oh, let's see. I would say Aunt Dot. I had an aunt. We called her Aunt Dot. Aunt Dot. But in school they'll say, no, it's not aunt. It's oint. It's oint or oint. I said, oh, it sounds more like a pig. Oint. I remember when I was in school, there were the two girls arguing. and one was saying, it's on. And the other girl was saying, no, it's on. On. What didn't matter to me if a girl, if somebody tells me to go turn the switch on, I'll go flip the light switch on. If someone tells me to flip the switch on, I'll go flip the switch on. The light still works either way. I still get to turn the switch on. And I remember one day I was talking to my sister and I said, you know? And she started laughing her head off. Because we Irish folk, the word no, we say it like, let me see if I can say it. You know what's happening. We put a little O more of an O in it. You know what I'm saying? But then I picked up some of the accent, Wilmington, North Carolina, from the Yankee folk from New York. There are a lot of people came from New York to Wilmington. They'll say, no. You know what I'm saying? Well, do you know or do you know? Oh, my goodness. Anyway, let's see if I can think of a few more expressions before I get off this iPhone. Let's see. My goodness, I have to go back in my memory bank and remember being a little boy. Oh, here's one. How do you like this? Somebody might say, do you like that? And then I'll either say yeah or nah. Look, another expression. See? Nah. I like to repeat it. Make me laugh when I say it. Nah. Or nah. Or I already did the and expressions like, if you agree with somebody, go, mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I understand, see? Or you don't understand, you go, I don't get that. So when you use these expressions in this age of modernity, when most of the Western academia world, as I've already pointed out, they get the robotic sound, And so on my computer, I have a synthesizer, and it oh my goodness, it drives me crazy. It's a synthesizer program called Emacs Speak, and it talks like this. Let me see if I can duplicate it. I might say, today it sure is a beautiful day. On the computer, I say it like this. Today is a beautiful day. Today is a beautiful day. Beautiful. Sounds so funny. It doesn't have any soul. And then on the news media, especially the mainstream media, they all pretty much sound alike. Today is a beautiful day. This happened today. Tomorrow, this will happen. This week's news is the same as it was last week. It's just happening to different people. See how boring that sounds? But I'd rather say it like this. Howdy, folks. This is Rodney Farquharson coming to you from Haystack County with all the news that is the news that was the news. This week's news is the same as it was last week. It's just happening to different people. Well, that turns off people who have been programmed that the robot way or the non-expressive way or the non-facial way is the right way. Well, I got news for all of them. You've been had. You've been programmed. And so you've noticed that a lot of people, especially the college folk, they talk like robots. And it's not their fault. They've just been programmed by the so-called universal standard or whatever you want to call it, which is owned by Xantz and Company. You might say, well, who's Xantz? Well, learn about Xantz from John Fogerty. And John Fogerty had a group back in the old days with his brother and a couple other guys, and they called themselves the Gollywogs. And then Zant, who owned Fantasy Records, approached them and told them, that he wanted to record them. But he said, you're going to have to change your name. And John Fogerty's like, well, how come I got to change the name of our rock band? Gollywog. And they said it's racist. And John Fogerty's like scratching his head. And I'm scratching my head too. I'm going, why would Zant tell John Fogerty that he can't use that name Gollywog? He said, well, if I'm going to record your song, Zant said to the Gollywog group, if I'm going to record your song and be your producer, you're going to have to change your name. So they thought about it, and John Fogerty said, what would you call ourselves? Creedence Clearwater Revival. Well, years later, after the band broke up, John Fogerty came out with another song some years back. I don't know, it might have been close to 20 years ago. And it goes something like this. Zant can't dance, but he'll steal your money. Better watch him or he'll rob you blind. Zant can't dance, but he'll steal your money. You better watch him or he'll rob you blind. And now I changed the lyric a little bit that suits Western academia. Zant can't think, but he'll steal your mind. You better watch him or he'll make you blind. And so Zant and Company is in charge of this universal translator, such as Google Translation, another one called Indifferent Language Translation. There's many of them, one called Babylon Translation. And they all have twists in them there. There'll be a expression or a word in one tongue, and then they'll change it to this in the other tongue, even though it doesn't even have any relationship at all. And so I call it a trick. And that's what it is, it's a trick. So I say to folk, Zant and Company, you better watch it. Zant can't think, but he'll steal your mind. You better watch him or he'll rob you and make you blind. Anyway, I think I've said enough. That'll be it, folks.